view Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
We now join our scheduled program in progress.
Benefits, please consider these listings carefully. If you're interested in any one of the jobs listed here, please call the Personnel Department at 213-847-9240 for more information and an application. It's time you considered the City of Los Angeles as an employer. With more than 30,000 employees and hundreds of job classifications, the City of Los Angeles has the position and advancement opportunities that you're looking for. The City of Los Angeles is an equal opportunity employer. If you're looking for a great job with excellent benefits, please consider these listings carefully. If you're interested in any one of the jobs listed here, please call the Personnel Department at 213-847-9240 for more information and an application. It's time you considered the City of Los Angeles as an employer. With more than 30,000 employees and hundreds of job classifications, the City of Los Angeles has the position and advancement opportunities that you're looking for. The City of Los Angeles is an equal opportunity employer. If you're looking for a great job with excellent benefits, please consider these listings carefully. If you're interested in any one of the jobs listed here, please call the Personnel Department at 213-847-9240 for more information and an application. It's time you considered the City of Los Angeles as an employer. With more than 30,000 employees and hundreds of job classifications, the City of Los Angeles has the position and advancement opportunities that you're looking for. The City of Los Angeles is an equal opportunity employer. If you're looking for a great job with excellent benefits, please consider these listings carefully. If you're interested in any one of the jobs listed here, please call the Personnel Department at 213-847-9240 for more information and an application. It's time you considered the City of Los Angeles as an employer. With more than 30,000 employees and hundreds of job classifications, the City of Los Angeles has the position and advancement opportunities that you're looking for. The City of Los Angeles is an equal opportunity employer. If you're looking for a great job with excellent benefits, please consider these listings carefully. If you're interested in any one of the jobs listed here, please call the Personnel Department at 213-847-9240 for more information and an application. You're watching Crime Watch, brought to you by the City of Los Angeles Police Department and LA's CityView 35. The City of Los Angeles is offering the following rewards for information leading to the identity, arrest, and prosecution of the person or persons responsible for committing the crime. The deadline for each reward is seen on your screen, accompanied by the phone number and the detective handling the case. Basic information about the victim and the crime, such as date and place, is stated. However, complete information surrounding the crime may be only discussed on the phone with the detective assigned to the case. If you have any information that might assist the LAPD in solving this crime, you are urged to contact the number on your screen. Each investigation is filed under a number which is also on your screen. You will need to refer to this number when calling the detectives with your information. If you wish to provide anonymous tips regarding a crime that you may have information about, please call the number on your screen. However, anonymous witnesses will not receive the award. You're watching Crime Watch, brought to you by the City of Los Angeles Police Department and LA City View 35. The City of Los Angeles is offering the following rewards for information leading to the identity, arrest, and prosecution of the person or persons responsible for committing the crime. The deadline for each reward is seen on your screen, accompanied by the phone number and the detective handling the case. Basic information about the victim and the crime, such as date and place, is stated. However, complete information surrounding the crime may be only discussed on the phone with the detective assigned to the case. If you have any information that might assist the LAPD in solving this crime, you are urged to contact the number on your screen. Each investigation is filed under a number which is also on your screen. You will need to refer to this number when calling the detectives with your information. If you wish to provide anonymous tips regarding a crime that you may have information about, please call the number on your screen. However, anonymous witnesses will not receive the award. You're watching Crime Watch, brought to you by the City of Los Angeles Police Department and LA City View 35. The City of Los Angeles is offering the following rewards for information leading to the identity, arrest, and prosecution of the person or persons responsible for committing the crime. The deadline for each reward is seen on your screen, accompanied by the phone number and the detective handling the case. Basic information about the victim and the crime, such as date and place, is stated. However, complete information surrounding the crime may be only discussed on the phone with the detective assigned to the case. If you have any information that might assist the LAPD in solving this crime, you are urged to contact the number on your screen. Each investigation is filed under a number which is also on your screen. You will need to refer to this number when calling the detectives with your information.
You are watching Community Calendar, brought to you by LA City View Channel 35 and the participating departments of the City of Los Angeles. You can watch Community Calendar weekdays Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Tune in to find out what the city is doing in your neighborhoods. From community festivals, parades, and neighborhood cleanups to official city meetings, public hearings, and other important activities that you want to know about. All announcements are for an advanced 2-week period. For city activities prior to this 2-week period, log on to www.lacity.org and follow the link to citywide calendar and agendas. If you are interested in a particular announcement and wish to receive more detailed information, call the phone number listed for the event or log on to the city's homepage at www.lacity.org. LA City View Channel 35 is pleased to bring this program to our viewers. If you missed any portion of this segment, please call 213-485-7561 for additional information. Watching Community Calendar, brought to you by LA City View Channel 35 and the participating departments of the City of Los Angeles. You can watch Community Calendar weekdays Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Tune in to find out what the city is doing in your neighborhoods, from community festivals, parades, and neighborhood cleanups to official city meetings, public hearings, and other important activities that you want to know about. All announcements are for an advanced 2-week period. For city activities prior to this 2-week period, log on to www.lacity.org and follow the link to citywide calendar and agendas. If you are interested in a particular announcement and wish to receive more detailed information, call the phone number listed for the event or log on to the city's homepage at www.lacity.org. LA City View Channel 35 is pleased to bring this program to our viewers. If you missed any portion of this segment, please call 213-485-7561 for additional information. Calendar, brought to you by LA City View Channel 35 and the participating departments of the City of Los Angeles. You can watch Community Calendar weekdays Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Tune in to find out what the city is doing in your neighborhoods, from community festivals, parades, and neighborhood cleanups to official city meetings, public hearings, and other important activities that you want to know about. All announcements are for an advanced 2-week period. For city activities prior to this 2-week period, log on to www.lacity.org and follow the link to citywide calendar and agendas.
Hi, my name's Hank Amigo. I teach 3rd grade at Fair Avenue Elementary School in North Hollywood. Well, I started the mentoring program 15 years ago, my 2nd year of school, and basically it's just kids that I've had come back on their off-track time, free time, and help the kids that I have now. So you have somebody that's been through what you're going through that can help you when you get older. Most of the kids that come back are kids that would be considered to be hard luck kids. With love and help and guidance and mentoring, we're always mentoring each other. A lot of these kids are doing great things. And it's just great to see kids who a lot of people would think don't really have a chance, to see them making it well in society. And that's my ultimate goal, is to have them be mentored all the way up and then get jobs, in our community and keep the community going. We wrote a musical called Nobody Runs Alone, and it's based on the lives of two of my former students who were very troubled kids from bad family backgrounds. And two colleagues and I decided to write a song about the kids. And as time went on, we ended up writing 16 songs, 56 pages of dialogue. We raised $30,000, and we put it on at the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood. This story is not Pollyanna or whatnot, and the father really beat the kids up on numerous occasions, and the father's just beat the kid up and told him that he needs to get out and steal some bikes because the father's decided that the way to raise money for the family is for all the kids to go out and steal bikes and bring them home, paint them, and sell them. The child's name in the play is Alone, and here he is with his girlfriend, realizing that his girlfriend's the one that is really going to help him pull it through and make it through high school and go on to a successful career. At the end of the play, Alone has finally worked hard the last couple of years in school and gotten his act together, and he's going to be the valedictorian of his class. So this is a celebration, and all the other mentors from all ages have come back to the graduation to see him graduate. So it's really a success and a triumph of our mentoring program. My name is Hank Amigo. I'm proud to be working with these children, and I'm a face of LA.
In the city of Los Angeles,
there is an Amber Alert.
when he calls, the LAPD responds.
We have a positive on that alert vehicle.
Nada más que hay 3 días para que quedaras aquí.
Dije que no tengo dinero.
To protect and to serve.
¿Estás lastimado?
No.
¿Cuántas personas hay aquí?
Mi hermano está en el baño y mi esposo no está ahí.
Las manos arriba, por favor. Párese.
Okay, tell me what happened.
My sister's letting me stay there. Lleva aquí un mes, no está pagando renta. Me parece que chocó contra la pared.
When you hit me.
Do you want to make a report?
No.
¿Qué usted quiere que nosotros hagamos?
Que lo saque para afuera, que se vaya.
Brother-in-law doesn't want you staying there anymore. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gracias,
¿Está bien?
Standing with our community.
When we first got there, I didn't know what the heck we had.
1653, unknown trouble. Male and female arguing inside of a green vehicle stopped on the 6th Street Bridge. Spot code 3.
Leave us alone! Driver's got a gun.
16-253, requesting backup. 415 Manway Drive. We're on the 6th Street Bridge facing westbound.
Hello. All right, show me en route.
For the officers of the LAPD, it's all in a day's work. Working as a team, they take pride in what they do.
We're waiting for your alarm.
Not coming out of the car!
Hey, listen, we've got time to work this out.
Shut up!
Let's just talk right now.
That's nothing to do with you, man.
I know you're upset. I want you to talk to me.
That's the little girl.
The little girl that's missing?
Yes. 6th Street and Brooks.
The caller's DOA.
Get away from the car or I'll shoot her! I'm gonna kill her, man!
Listen to me. Why don't you just let her go?
Girl's coming out.
Hey, John, lower the gun, buddy.
Become a part of the team. The LAPD is hiring. Visit us at joinlapd.com.
My name is Pico, and I want to tell you something. From Pacoima to Pico Union, Northridge to North Hollywood, Butts to Wilmington, biking LA is the best. And so is watching LA City View 35. It's our city. It's our channel.
up on Destination Tomorrow, we'll discover that in the near future, pilots will be able to fly through low visibility using a new technology developed at NASA. We'll also learn how lasers allow researchers to measure ozone and pollutants in our atmosphere. And we take a look back at how one man's relentless determination changed NASA's approach to successfully landing a man on the moon and bringing him home safely. All this and more next on Destination Tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien, and welcome to Destination Tomorrow.
This program will uncover how past, present, and future research is creating today's knowledge to answer the questions and solve the challenges of tomorrow. Our world is shaped by math, science, and technology. They are ever present in our daily lives.
Almost a century ago, two brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, used the knowledge of their time to design and fly a heavier-than-air machine off the dunes near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Today, NASA's using the latest research to advance the science of flight, so flying will be safer.
Let's go behind the scenes to see how NASA is changing the way that future pilots will navigate through low visibility conditions. Erica Johnson shows us how this developing technology called synthetic vision will help save lives.
Limited visibility is the greatest contributing factor in most fatal worldwide airline and general aviation crashes. In commercial aviation, over 30% of all fatal accidents worldwide are categorized as controlled flight into terrain accidents. This is when a functioning aircraft crashes into terrain or other obstacles the pilots could not see due to poor visibility. A revolutionary new cockpit display system currently being developed by NASA will help prevent many of these accidents from ever occurring again. I spoke with researchers in the Aviation Safety Program at NASA Langley Research Center to find out more about how synthetic vision will make flying safer for everyone.
Synthetic vision is essentially an electronic window for the pilot. When he looks at his real window and he sees nothing but clouds, or perhaps he's flying at night, by looking down at his synthetic vision display, he'll see the real world. So the computer draws a scene of the world. It's a bright, sunshiny view of what's outside the cockpit. And the pilot uses that when he can't see out the window.
Will synthetic vision save lives?
Oh, without a doubt. 30% of fatal accidents are accidents when a good functioning airplane runs into terrain because the pilot can't see it, not because there's anything wrong with the airplane. We also have in the U.S. a problem called runway incursion accidents. That's when a taxiing airplane on the ground and an airplane that's trying to land have a runway conflict. And this kind of display, because it does show traffic, can eliminate that kind of accident as well.
What does the display look like?
Actually, Linda's flying the simulator. It's probably easier to show you than to describe it to you.
What we have here now are conventional displays that you find in a typical transport aircraft. The top display is called a primary flight display. That gives the pilot the information he needs to fly the plane. If you can imagine when it's a nice day outside, like it is now, if you look outside, nice, bright, sunshiny day, you can see the mountains, you can see the airport environment. There's really not a problem using this type of instrumentation. The pilot has a good feel of where he is with regard to the terrain and other traffic. But imagine, if you will, if it was nighttime or if it was foggy outside, like we can see now in the simulator. Now the only information the pilot has to fly by is what he sees on his instruments. But after you've flown in the fog for a while or the nighttime conditions, you might lose your situational awareness or where you are with respect to other terrain, the path that you're supposed to be flying to the airport, and other traffic. So what we thought we would do, and what Russ talked about earlier, is bring synthetic vision into the cockpit. So we would bring the synthetic vision display and replace the head-down primary flight display with a synthetic vision display. And that's what you're seeing now. So in this display, and if you want to look outside the window, you can kind of see how that same mountainous information is also represented head-down in the primary flight display. In addition to showing the terrain features and other information like that, also in the primary flight display, show your speed and altitude information to fly the aircraft. So now, with the synthetic vision display, the pilot has a good feel of where he is with regard to the terrain and other traffic. And again, if we were to have fog outside or a nighttime condition, as you can see here, he transitions from the out the window to head down to the synthetic vision display. You can very easily see where he is with respect to the runway environment and other traffic.
What kind of research goes into synthetic vision?
Once we have done our simulation experiments in simulators, then we go validate the display concepts in flight. One aircraft we used was unique in that it had two cockpits. The aircraft, the way it was staged, you had a normal aircraft, and then it added an extra nose or extra cockpit on the front of the aircraft. The research displays are in that front nose of the cockpit, as well as the research pilot and the principal investigator. And then in the second cockpit, which is behind this research cockpit, two safety pilots fly. We really think that synthetic vision can save lives. In fact, the goal we're trying to meet is to reduce the fatal aircraft accident rate by 80% in 10 years, 90% in 20 years. We're just so excited about this technology because you really can provide the pilot information that we think is going to be able to save lives.
NASA researchers believe that synthetic vision could be retrofitted onto commercial airliners within the next 5 years. Coming up, discover how a NASA technology is helping expectant mothers to monitor their pregnancy at home. But first, did you know that the distance flown by the Wright brothers in their first flight was shorter than the wingspan of a Boeing 747? The Wrights' first flight was 120 feet, while the wingspan of a 747 is 195 feet, 8 inches.
According to doctors, 10% of all pregnancies can be categorized as high risk. That is when a woman or an unborn child has a greater chance of a complication or infection. Now, an exciting new technology developed at NASA gives new hope to expectant mothers. Our own Paula Vaden explains.
Imagine you're an expectant mother who happens to live in a remote area that suffers from a lack of appropriate health care. So routine doctor's visits for prenatal checkups are, unfortunately, not a part of your schedule. Well, NASA is changing the way pregnant women can receive medical attention right in their own homes. And NASA technology, originally used to measure airflow over airplane wings, has been successfully used to develop a portable, non-invasive, easy-to-use fetal heart rate monitor. This technology can listen, document, and store fetal heart rate data without injecting energy into the womb. In fact, in its present form, an at-home patient can send heart rate information directly to her doctor's office via the internet. I spoke with Dr. Alan Zakawar of NASA Langley's Advanced Measurement and Diagnostics branch and found that this technology may soon find its way into your home.
The portable fetal heart monitor developed by NASA permits an expectant mother to perform fetal testing at home. About 10% of pregnancies in this country are put into the high-risk category for one reason or another. And normally, the way things are today, mom goes into the clinic once or twice a week to do testing. It's done by ultrasound, which is a technology that is not very well suited for an inexperienced mother to use at home. Our device is a passive device. It's just like a stethoscope. And in fact, we describe it as an electronic stethoscope, which is very safe. And mom can perform the same testing daily in the comfort of her own home.
So traditionally, doctors use ultrasound to measure the fetal heart rate. Why is this portable fetal heart rate monitor such an important medical device?
Well, the ultrasound injects an ultrasonic signal and measures the Doppler shift by the flapping of the fetal heart valve. Our device is entirely passive. That is, the fetal tone appearing on the maternal abdominal surface is picked up by one of 7 sensors, and the array is strapped to the maternal abdomen. It doesn't have to be tight, just so we have good contact. The reason we have several sensors is that the fetal tone is actually highly localized. When the fetal heart tone impinges on the sensor, it generates an electrical impulse which goes through an interface box, is filtered, and then goes to our computer for signal processing.
It sounds something like that.
It sounds like that. And the computer software has to be able to pick out the fetal tone from amongst all the background noise. So that is essentially what the fetal passive technology does.
I know you're not an obstetrician, but can you tell me how the device helps babies?
Right. Well, the device does permit increased frequency of surveillance of the expectant mom. And this is, for the high-risk patients, this is a key issue. This can be explained more fully by my colleague David Shannon.
The fetal heart monitor's beauty comes from 3 points. 1, it's passive. 2, it's non-invasive. And 3, it's portable. It's passive, meaning that there's no energy going into the womb. It's like a big microphone or ear listening to the pulse coming from the fetus, okay? Secondly, being non-invasive, it's warm on the exterior of the abdomen, so there's no breaking the skin. And lastly, it's portable. So in a situation where you have a high-risk pregnancy and mom needs to be monitored maybe 3 or 4 times a week, the baby is subjected to energy every time you use the current state-of-the-art. However, with this, the mom can wear it essentially every day, all day. There's no energy going into the womb. Therefore, the baby is not subjected to that transmitted energy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So when I think of NASA, traditionally I think of the space programs and the wonderful breakthroughs there. How did they become involved in such a exciting medical breakthrough?
Well, we had a problem statement to come in from a doctor who was working with patients who lived in a remote area, and he was having difficulty implementing a remote fetal heart monitoring capability. So he sent a problem statement to headquarters, and headquarters sent it down to Langley, and Dr. Zuckerwar was working with piezoelectric film at the time, characterizing the airflow over an airfoil in the wind tunnel. And he thought that, hey, this would be a great match for this type of problem. 1, it's flexible, so it could fit around the abdomen of the mother, and 2, it was sensitive so that it could pick up the fetal pulse and then give the information to some software on a computer, and then that could be transmitted to the doctor's office, and the doctor can monitor the well-being of that child during that time.
Oh, it's truly amazing. So when do you all expect that doctors will actually be able to have this device in their offices and available to the patients?
Well, the information is being submitted to the FDA for approval at this time. Upon their approval, then it will be made available through our licensed partner. We anticipate within the next 2 years that it will be on the market if all goes well with the approval from the FDA. Then our licensing partner can take it to market, and hopefully we'll be able to save lives.
On May 25th, 1961, President Kennedy announced to the world that the United States would make it a national goal to land a man on the moon and then return him home safely before the end of the decade. In fact, I'm standing in front of the former Lunar Landing Research Facility here at NASA Langley, where the Apollo astronauts trained for their moon landings.
Once the decision to go to the moon was made, the next question was how to get there. In early 1961, 3 main approaches emerged: direct ascent, Earth orbit rendezvous, and lunar orbit rendezvous. John Hubble, a theoretical mathematician at the NASA Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, championed the approach that came to be called Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, or LOR. LOR required the use of 2 vehicles, the Lunar Excursion Module, or LEM, to land on the moon, and the Command Module, which remained in lunar orbit. When the landing mission was over, the LEM would return to lunar orbit and rendezvous with the Command Module for the return trip to Earth. The LOR approach received a cold reception in the early meetings within NASA. Many thought that LOR was the most dangerous of the 3 approaches.
And this is an indication of the feeling that most people had about it. It says Hubble has a scheme of 50% chance of getting a man to the moon and a 1% chance of getting him back. That was the general feeling at the time. And that's the obstacle I had to overcome.
Many in NASA assumed that direct ascent was the simplest approach to get to the moon. Direct ascent would use a single, large spacecraft that would be launched from Earth, land on the moon, and return to Earth. This approach was scrapped once NASA engineers realized that the rocket would be too large, difficult, and expensive to build. The approach receiving the most support, including the famed rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, was Earth Orbit Rendezvous, or EOR. EOR involved launching pieces of the spacecraft on a series of boosters and then assembling them in Earth orbit. This approach was soon discounted when it became obvious that it would be very difficult and would take too long to develop. John Hubble at NASA Langley continued to push the LOR idea to anyone who would listen.
In a sense, it tended to be discouraging to me, but at the same time, I felt so strongly about the idea, I inwardly had the motivation to keep plugging for it, which is what I continue to do. session after session.
Hobart was convinced that LOR was the fastest, safest, and most cost-effective way to get to the moon. Hobart's determination paid off in late 1962 when the decision was made by NASA to use Lunar Orbit Rendezvous. The decision to use LOR turned out to be a wise choice.
It is estimated that LOR saved billions of dollars and was completed years before either EOR or the direct ascent approach could have been implemented. Many historians believe that the decision to use LOR was the single most important decision made by NASA during the Apollo program. Without LOR, the United States may have never realized the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him home safely before the end of the decade.
The Apollo 11 flight to the moon captured the attention of the entire world. The largest international television audience at that time shared the excitement of the first successful moon landing. Coming up, see how NASA is using lasers to better understand the Earth's atmosphere. But first, did you know that Apollo 11's onboard computer was extremely limited by today's standards? Its fixed memory, what we now call ROM, held approximately 1/20th the storage capacity of a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Its total RAM, or random access memory, was only about 4K. The average home PC today comes with 8,000 times as much memory.
In recent years, researchers have discovered many new and troubling facts about the Earth's atmosphere and the natural and human processes that are affecting it. We are only now beginning to understand how air pollution can affect the air that we breathe and how it can even be damaging to the Earth's ozone layer, which protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays. A great deal of the knowledge that we have about the Earth's atmosphere comes from conducting airborne experiments on board many different NASA research aircraft. These aircraft are equipped with sophisticated lasers and instruments called LiDARs, which are capable of remotely detecting even the most minute changes in the Earth's atmosphere. I talked to Dr. Edward Browell of the Atmospheric Sciences Division at NASA Langley Research Center to find out more about LiDAR and how it's being used to change our understanding of our fragile atmosphere.
LiDAR basically is very similar to radar, but we're using a pulse of light instead of a microwave pulse. And in using that pulse of light, if you've ever looked at your headlight through a fog, you can see all the small particles. Well, a radar only reflects from large droplets in the atmosphere. But a laser at the colors that are similar to what your eye can detect looks like your headlight of your car. But we send this pulse into the atmosphere and it scatters some particles, and because we know how long it takes to get to that location and back, we can tell where things are along the pulse as it propagates into the atmosphere. And the reason we're interested in it, of course, is that ozone is very important as a pollutant down low where we all live, as well as it protects us in the upper atmosphere from the ultraviolet light coming into the Earth. And we also are interested in water vapor, because water vapor is important in severe storm production, like in hurricane forecasting. And we would like to know more about hurricane behavior.
Now, it's an acronym, as I understand, so what exactly does LiDAR stand for?
Well, LiDAR stands for Light Detection and Ranging, and much in the same vein as radar, it basically is the analogy to radar. But we're using light and pulsed light instead of pulsed microwaves in a radar.
And we actually have a LiDAR machine back here behind us that flies on aircraft, right? And it was actually built here at NASA.
Yes, over the last 20 years, we've been pioneering the development of LiDAR systems for the measurements of ozone and water vapor. And this is the first autonomously operating LiDAR system that has ever been flown in an aircraft. And autonomous means basically we had no people associated with it. The pilot turned it on and it did all of the things necessary to make measurements of particles and water vapor and clouds while it was flying on a very high altitude plane. The high altitude aircraft that NASA has is used to fly over things such as storms and hurricanes, and this was really the first of its type to be flown on an aircraft, and it's a prototype of what we want to take into space.
Now, Dr. Browell, where do you see the future of LiDAR research going, and really, what's its importance to future generations?
Well, in the very near term, we're going to be doing some experiments with the Department of Energy, flying this system behind you on an aircraft to better understand climate change and intercompare various remote sensors that are needed for understanding climate change. And next year this time, we're going to be studying hurricanes again. As I mentioned earlier, we have hurricane research that we're going to be flying out of Florida, Patrick Air Force Base possibly, over various hurricanes as we did 2 years ago, where we flew over 5 hurricanes in trying to understand their behavior better, their intensification and their predictions. Where we're going in the future is we'd like to make these systems smaller and go on unpiloted aircraft to be able to fly regions where we can't go with piloted aircraft. And of course we want to go to space with it. This system behind you was a prototype for going to space, for making water vapor measurements. We also want to measure ozone from space with a laser system. And these will revolutionize our ability to make measurements globally, and it will complement what's being done with passive instruments like that are imaging the Earth from space right now. And of course the objective of all of this is to better predict pollution on the Earth, changes in ozone in the upper atmosphere that's going to affect the radiation on the Earth, and also better predict meteorological properties like hurricanes, and also climate change. It will also make an impact in the long term on being able to predict climate. So that's really where we're going in the future, and we're very excited about it.
Since 1978, the LiDAR Applications Group has been developing, applying, and testing advanced LiDAR systems on aircraft around the world. Speaking of aircraft, did you know that over 50% of airline passengers do not know how a plane flies? Well, our own Johnny Alonso finds out how it works.
Hey, we've all heard that air travel is the safest form of transportation. After all, over 560 million passengers climb on board domestic flights here in the U.S. But have you ever wondered how a plane actually flies? I mean, how does 320,000 pounds of metal lift into the air with such ease? For some answers, we'll be talking with research pilot Rob Rivers of NASA Langley's Research Center. Rob has been a research pilot here at NASA for 14 years and has flown some of the most exciting aircraft in the world. How are you?
Fine. Nice to meet you, Johnny.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for coming out today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you here at NASA Langley.
Great. So, tell us, what are the forces that allow a plane to fly?
Well, Johnny, there's 4 basic forces that affect an airplane in flight. Okay. You have the lift of the airplane, the weight of the airplane, the thrust provided by the engines, and the drag that's caused by the air resistance to the airplane in flight. Okay. So those 4 forces affect all airplanes in flight all the time. In the case of lift, you see we have wings right here, and the wings are there to provide the lift which opposes the weight.
Okay.
And they do that by allowing the air to flow over the top of the wing at a higher speed than underneath the wing. That creates a lower pressure, and that lower pressure allows the airplane to fly. Now, as far as moving the airplane through the air, you have what's called thrust, and thrust is provided, in this case, by jet engines on this supersonic NASA T-38, and they basically accelerate air very fast up the tail of the engine, so like a rocket, and that propels the aircraft forward.
Okay.
Now, in order to balance the thrust, if you had nothing to balance that thrust, the airplane, of course, would accelerate out to some phenomenal speed, and we know that doesn't happen.
Right.
So what happens is the force of drag opposes thrust. And drag is just the air resistance on the aircraft, on the skin of the airplane, on the wings, on the front of the airplane. And it's just very similar to sticking your hand outside a car window when you're driving on the highway. Your hand blows back.
Sure.
That's just the pressure of the air exerted on your hand.
Okay.
So drag balances thrust, and that allows you to fly at some specific speed through the air. The more thrust you put in, the faster you'll go until the drag balances it. And lift opposes the weight. So airplane weighs a certain amount, you have to create that much lift to allow the aircraft to fly. And that's what the wings and the fuselage do. They produce that lift to allow the aircraft to fly.
I see. Which ties me into my next question. I mean, how do you turn a plane?
Okay, well, let me show you, because it's a lot different than, say, an automobile.
Okay.
The airplane has something called ailerons, which are these structures right here.
All right.
And you see this aileron is deflected slightly downward. And what that would cause is this wing to generate more lift than the wing on the other side. If this wing has more lift, it's going to rise relative to the other wing, and the airplane is going to bank.
Oh.
And then the airplane will turn.
Tell me a little bit about how a plane's wing actually works.
Okay, sure, Johnny.
Sure.
Most airplane wings are designed with a kind of a flat lower edge and a curved upper surface. So that means the molecule on the bottom of the surface has a less distance to travel than the one on the top, which means the molecule on the top has to go faster. Now we know that if you have air traveling at a faster speed, the actual static pressure of that air has to decrease. Again, another law of science. So that means that the air traveling across the top of this wing, traveling faster, has a lower pressure than the air on the bottom of the wing. You add up that whole part of the contribution of this wing and the other wing, and if the design is correct, then you have enough lift generated to overcome the weight, as we talked about earlier, and the airplane will fly. Let's look at the tail, Johnny.
Sure.
All aircraft, or most aircraft designs, have a wing and a tail surface. And the whole purpose of the tail structure, including the horizontal stabilizer, the vertical stabilizer, the rudder, and in some airplanes an elevator, is to provide stability for the aircraft and to control it in the pitch axis and what's called the directional axis.
Well, how do you slow a plane down enough to land?
All right, let me show you. Airplanes, most airplanes on the trailing surface of the wing have a device called wing flaps. And the whole purpose of these is to allow the airplane to fly at slower speeds and land. Obviously, you can't land at 800 miles an hour. You want to slow, in this case, down to about 160 miles an hour. You have to do something to change the wing to make it produce more lift at slower speeds. And what you do is you increase the curvature of the wing. And these flaps will actually deflect downward, creating a big curvature on this wing. And the more curvature you have, up to a certain point, the more lift you can create. Some airplanes also, the flaps actually extend a little bit aft and then deflect, so you actually increase the size of the wing. So both those techniques are used to create the lift you need at slower speeds.
Thanks for your time, Rob.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Johnny.
So that's how it works. So the next time you get on board any plane, you know the basic principles of flight. Start her up. Let's get out of here.
Okay, Johnny.
Hit the drive-thru, man. My treat.
That's it for this edition of Destination Tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien. For all of us here at NASA, see you next time.
I'm Sergio in Pacoima. You are watching LA City View 35, our city, our channel.
Hola, mi nombre es Paul Peterson. La misión de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, el Departamento de Personal de Tercera Edad, es de mejorar la calidad de vida, independencia, salud y dignidad de la población de más edad de la ciudad a través de administrar programas basados en la comunidad de personas de tercera edad que son exhaustivos, coordinados y accesibles. Y también para ser activista para las necesidades de las personas de tercera edad. El departamento ofrece muchos programas y servicios para personas de tercera edad, incluyendo este programa de televisión, Aging in LA. producido en cooperación con CityView, el canal 35. Ahora, ¿qué hay en el futuro para los servicios de personas de tercera edad con el alto crecimiento de la población de edad avanzada? A raíz de la edad avanzada de baby boomers y el incremento en la expectación de vida, hablaremos sobre el futuro en este programa de hoy. Esté con nosotros en Aging in LA. Hay una gran variedad de servicios para personas de tercera edad en el zona del sur de California, los cuales pueden escoger muchos de esos servicios. Son proporcionados por organizaciones particulares sin fin de lucro, mientras otros son proporcionadas por organizaciones de servicio público, tal como el Departamento del personas de tercera edad de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Estos servicios incluyen un servo de la comunidad para personas de tercera edad, programa de empleo, alimentación de los centros de personas de tercera edad, acceso, transporte, servicios legales, servicios sociales y programas para el cuidado para personas adultas. Con el incremento en la población de personas de tercera edad y limitaciones en el presupuesto para programas gubernamentales, ¿qué esperamos en cuanto a servicios para personas de tercera edad en el futuro? Nuestro invitado el de hoy hablará sobre su visión para el futuro de Los Ángeles. Bienvenido, por favor, al concejal Tom LaBonge, concejal de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, del Distrito 4. También es presidente del Comité de Personas de Tercera Edad, Salud y Parques y Artes del Consejo Municipal. Así es que el tema tiene información personal acerca del futuro de la persona que está en Los Ángeles. Bienvenido, Tom. Parece la verdad su amigo personal y yo soy admirador de su energía y espíritu. Porque es sencillo, cuando yo llego a lugares, usted está ahí. Es un gran honor ser concejal de la ciudad de Los Ángeles y el tener este trabajo. Yo crecí, tuve una familia muy bonita, padres muy lindos y también mis abuelitos al lado de mi papá vivieron juntos por muchos años. Entonces la relación con mi familia me ha ayudado a quien soy y también trabajé para el gran ya fallecido John Farrar por 6 años. Con Peggy Stevens a fines de los años 70 fue campeona para personas de tercera edad y luego con Richard Reardon el puesto en su oficina y también con el departamento de energía. Tiene una gran oportunidad en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Era como concejal, me gusta salir y ayudar a personas para que crean en la ciudad y hacer mucho por la personalidad porque hacen mucho por nosotros y eso la verdad es una manera de dar a la comunidad. Pero los números son alarmantes si no resolvemos esto porque nuestra población de personas de edad avanzada está creciendo y la definición de una persona no sale en los años 80. Estamos empezando la edad de 55, 60 y 65. Empezamos a participar en diferentes servicios. Usted ha sido campeón de muchas cosas para personas de edad. El centro de Griffith Park, hablamos sobre esto. Una cosa más, si se me suena, pero en toda la ciudad debe de existir centros para personas adultas. Tenemos muchas ideas de nuestras experiencias. West Wilshire, hay un centro multiproceso de personas de tercera no funcionó porque las personas de tercera tienen necesidades especiales y los jóvenes y los que juegan voleibol, los que juegan básquetbol y otras actividades no se mezclaban. Entonces separamos esa situación y construimos un gimnasio nuevo. Y luego, este año abrimos el Pan Pacific, ese centro de personas en esta mente, dije, en mi distrito, hay el observatorio, acabamos de terminar una relación de $93 millones, recién renovado, muy bonito. Tenían un observatorio provisional en trailers, en el estacionamiento del zoológico, que le dije al director del observatorio y al buró de ingeniería, dije, ¿cuál es nuestro plan después de que el observatorio termine con sus edificios? No tenían plan. Entonces estableció una llamada a una persona de tercera edad. Al, lo que vive en el área de Los Feliz, él se quejaba que estaban siendo desalojados de su centro, personas donde jugaban un juego llamado Bridge. Entonces recibí la llamada y personalmente ese caballero quien yo conozco y pensé, ¿qué vamos a hacer con esos trailers? Bueno, al fin del día los cambiamos del estacionamiento del zoológico al auditorio en Riverside Drive, ahí por Mulholland Fountain, por esa fuente. Sí, creo que puse ahí yo un pedacito de jabón ahí y vomitando, no le digan nada porque no nos está escuchando, nomás somos nosotros, pero hice una travesura, pero es una nueva hogar para la comunidad. Ahora, como concejal, yo trato de visitar mi distrito lo más posible y Stephanie Bendick es una gran persona. Gold también es una gran persona, es campeona para Silver Lake Seniors en una zona muy pequeña por el dam en Silver Lake, y con la pasión de ellas, con las preguntas acerca de dónde podían ser ubicadas las personas estaba con el señor de Lucas y mi pensar en qué vamos a hacer con este edificio. La ciudad los unimos, no solamente va a dar servicios para Silver Lake, River Park, Atwater Village, los Felicitation Park, todos pueden llegar ahí en autobús, se pueden reunir y recibir fortaleza el uno al otro. Lo que uno necesita para ser éxito en la vida son dos cosas: agua. Sin agua no podemos plantar, comer nada, y relaciones. Y entonces tenemos que conservar nuestra agua, porque sé que estamos en una sequía. El DWP le preocupa mucho eso, pero necesitamos agua como ciclo de nuestras vidas. Pero también relaciones personales, en lo que yo siento y lo que yo busco en personas que se sientan tan apasionados de Los Ángeles como yo, las personas de tercera edad que participan, se sienten mejores, están en mejor estado físico, sus cuerpos, sus mentes, cuando participan con nosotros. Yo sé, pero tenemos desafíos que son muy originales a Los Ángeles, porque realmente es una ciudad muy, muy grande. Entonces, problemas de transporte son de suma importancia para el proceso. ¿Cómo vamos a resolver esto en el futuro? Vamos a poder crear comunidades de jubilación que ocurren naturalmente para que se reúnan las personas. Vamos a tener más transporte público. ¿Qué piensa usted? Vamos a poder desarrollar, espero, más centros, y siento que quizás reciban fondos del gobierno o a través de otras fuentes. Creo que cada institución religiosa que tiene una comunidad en la parroquia, en el templo, puede estar dicisponible. Muchos están disponibles, muchos no solamente incluyen a su propia congregación, pero también a otros de la comunidad. Pero eso debe de ocurrir en toda la ciudad, porque no podemos hacerlo solos. Pero claro, en toda la ciudad donde podemos hacerlo, debemos de incluir más instalaciones para personas y tener más oportunidades, porque hay más personas como usted y yo. Paul está un poquito más adelantado que yo, pero no tanto, porque yo casi voy a llegar a su edad. Bien, y de más despacio entonces, y tenemos que hacerlo porque creo que es importante. Ahora, no pienso yo que este es un aspecto muy importante. Quizá los sociólogos y otros pueden estudiar y darnos información que la persona de esta edad tradicionalmente quizá se cambien a otro mundo más descanso y de lujo, así, de hace 20 o 30 años. No creo que se van a ir de Los Ángeles así, ya no, se van a quedar aquí. Yo no quiero que se vayan, yo quiero su conocimiento, su sabiduría, su experiencia, y la verdad es que yo quiero su espíritu de ser voluntarios. Los programas más exitosos que hemos tenido el privilegio de ser testigos son programas de intergeneraciones, de personas de su corazón, y claro, los mantienen activos. Están ayudando a los jóvenes que están en problema, los niños en preescolares que necesitan guarderías aptas para ellos, centros de recreación. También hay mucha oportunidad para unirse en ese sentido. Entonces, realmente creo yo que eso es lo que miraremos que ocurrirá en el futuro. Tenemos que mejorar el sistema de transporte, y hay muchas diferentes cosas que tenemos que incrementar fondos locales, más de Sacramento, más de Washington. No tiene ese tipo de oportunidad en este momento, pero he visto ciclos. Usted ha visto ciclos, estamos en un ciclo negativo, pero vamos a salir de ese ciclo, y rápidamente también tenemos que planear por esto y luego hacer el compromiso y hacer la inversión. Tal como el departamento de personas deseadas, si no tuviéramos el departamento de personas deseadas, solamente lo incluimos con muchas otras cosas, entonces ¿dónde estaría la abogacía? Necesitamos más personas de edad que sean defensores para otras personas de edad. Hay otra área de interés para mí, que sabemos que tenemos muy pocos estudiantes que se gradúan, no solamente en el ramo de geriatría, pero personal capacitado en otros lugares de residencias de ancianos. Tenemos que enfocarnos en campos de educación también, para que los jóvenes sepan que hay una gran población que necesidades tienen que ser servidas, sí. Hay mucho que el Departamento de Personas Terceras tiene que aprender. Sí, en mi comité soy el presidente, me da mucho gusto que usted esté ahí. Tengo grandes colegas conmigo, pero también quiero decir que realmente es un pequeño porcentaje un porcentaje más grande de los angelinos que ya están en la edad para esta necesidad, que debe de haber más inclusión de la comunidad, más enfoque, pero yo le pregunto a cualquier persona que está viendo este programa que participe, que se involucre, llame al 311 en la ayuntamiento, y yo quiero involucrarme con programas para personas de avanzada y les contaré al departamento de personas de tercera edad. Justamente les prometo que ellos son muy efectivos en reclutar personas. Siempre me mete el programa, porque uno de los servicios que ofrece el departamento de personas de tercera edad de Los Ángeles es un grupo de centros para personas de tercera edad multipropósitos. Entonces Los Ángeles son 16. Estos centros son puntos de enfoque de la comunidad para dar servicio a personas de las actividades más importantes, social y recreación. Como usted puede ver, las personas de tercera edad se divierten mucho, juegan juegos y hacen otras actividades sociales, bailan swing. Miren qué divertido se ve. Baile, cuando uno baila, le da hambre. Las personas pueden tener la oportunidad de deleitarse con una comida muy deliciosa en uno de esos de muchos lugares en toda la ciudad. Después de comida, más ejercicio si desea, ya sea ligero o algo más extremo. Les he mostrado unas pocas actividades en estos centros. Asegúrese visitar estas localizaciones de los centros multipropósito llamando el número telefónico de información de la ciudad, el cual es 311 ahora. Aún con eso, el 311, es increíble la cantidad de personas no saben que ese número existe. Pero más y más ya están sabiendo. Contamos 911, llamamos a la operadora y le conectamos con el parte de bomberos, parte de policía. Pero más y más personas están dando cuenta. Me gusta lo que dijo del baile de swing, porque en el área de Hollywood, el consejo Garcetti ha revitalizado esos nightclubs. Yo no salgo muy noche por la noche y hablo con ciertos propietarios del club. Dice, yo lo abro para personas de la edad de 40 o 50 llegan a 6 o 7 hasta las 9 y se antes que todos los jovencitos llegan allá porque ellos bailan hasta 2, 3, 4, 5 de la mañana. Me gustaría hacerlo temprano y luego irme a casa. Esa es la definición de edad media, cuando uno empieza a hacer decisiones que hace que llegue a casa más temprano. Pero bueno, mencioné, empezamos a retroceder esas horas cuando nosotros estamos recogiendo. Yo a las 8 de la noche yo ya acabé, yo ya termino. Sí, pero yo siempre me encanta las madrugadas, siempre salía temprano, todos desde el principio, nunca salía por noche, pero todos, cuando hablamos de salir por noche, hay una oportunidad para las personas de estar esto. Cuando mi mamá vivía, yo le animaba que no manejara a ciertas horas por el tránsito. Es un gran problema en Los Ángeles. Usted que escoja sus lugares y sus horas a mediodía, cuando no sea la hora pico. ¿Por qué? Por todo el embotellamiento que existe en muchas comunidades. Estaba pensando, cuando yo era más joven, yo nací en Glendale, yo siempre me sentía muy orgullosa, donde quiera que yo viajaba, que Los Ángeles siempre había sido líder, carros, diseños de moda, con la gran comunidad de entretenimiento. Claro, me gustaría permanecer al frente sobre asuntos de la persona tercera. ¿Cómo podemos movilizar a los angelinos para que despierten y decir, mire, vamos a tomar aquí el control? Lo que cada uno tenemos que hacer en su puesto como oficiales electos. Por eso me gusta tener una persona que trabaje para cada uno de nosotros. Hace como 20 años, para cabildeo, cuando Peggy Stevenson en el ayuntamiento, ella era mi primera patrona en el ayuntamiento, después de que Tom Bradley tenía el programa de homeless, en el cual trabajaba, pero Peggy fue la primera concejala para la cual trabajé. Tenían un personal de la tercera edad. Yo también tengo a alguien así para que hable con las personas de la misma edad. Todos tenemos que tener eso para ver más abogacía, para mezclar usos donde sea adecuado. Sí, porque no queremos ser islas poquitos de intereses especiales. Tenemos que integrar esto. Un momento para una breve pausa. Cuando regresemos, continuaremos con nuestra plática del futuro de personas de la tercera edad. Esté con nosotros, que estamos en un minuto.
You voted for it, we built it. The Department of Public Works Bureau of Engineering promised to improve, renovate, expand, or construct 32 libraries. On time and under budget, we delivered 36.
Need a recycling center? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall. Graffiti removal? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
Bienvenidos de nuevo al programa Aging in LA. Nuestro tema del día de hoy es el futuro de personas de mayor edad en Los Ángeles. Nuestro invitado es el concejal Tom Lavach, concejal del Distrito 4 de la Ciudad de Los Ángeles. Él también, importantemente, es el presidente del Comité de Arte, Parques, Salud y de Personas de tercera edad. Ahora, usted tiene muchos cargos en el transcurso del día, pero cuando usted viaja, como usted lo hace, se encuentra mirando personas de tercera edad y pensando, ellos quizás puedan productivamente participar en un programa de parque y recreación o el concilio de artes. Sí, lo positivo es esto, es que yo viajo mucho por la ciudad, se voy a un centro de tercera edad, una biblioteca pública, ellos están en equipo con otras personas, eso es muy bonito. Lo negativo, el desafío, a veces voy manejando y veo a una persona de tercera edad que estaba manejando en una acera y es una acera mala. No quiero que nadie se caiga en una acera de una ciudad o que entre en una cuenta de una intersección. El Departamento de Obras Públicas tiene que resolver esto. Me reuní hoy por hecho con alguien hoy para hablar sobre estos problemas, de tratar de mejorar obras públicas alrededor del área donde hay muchos peatones, porque muchas personas, creo que lo principal es de tratar de animar a personas que piensen sobre personas de esta edad. Y también lo que mirará Paul es que va a mirar la comercialización, es de mercadotecnia, crear imágenes, porque hay muchos de nosotros ahora, podemos decirlo así, y tenemos dinero. Yo no entiendo cómo es que Madison Avenue no trate de atraer a los personas que nosotros somos, escribimos los cheques, sí, incluyéndolos, sí, con campos de golf y de ese muchacho Bob, ¿te acuerdas? ¿Sabes a lo que me refiero? Yo conozco a Bob, porque sea esto, esta mercadotecnia que está corriendo, están enfocándose en selección, pero lo clave es para todas las personas de esa edad. Quiero expresar salud. A mí me encanta. Uno de mis mejores amigos fue el fallecido Charlie Turner. Hablamos delante de este programa del alcalde honorario. Caminamos él y yo en el parque, esa es una inspiración. Al Shapeman es 92, todavía camina en el parque Griffith. Él es voluntario en el Instituto Braille y estas son inspiraciones. Debemos de animar a más personas de tercera edad y ayudarles para que salgan a los parques, a las zonas abiertas, al parque. El Departamento de Parque y Recreación tiene una feria de buen estado físico para personas de 50 años o más. Todo el mundo se reúne y camina en el parque a Sepúlveda, Cheviot Hills o en Exposition Park y quizás en el Parque Harbor, que salgan, porque creo que cuando salen tienen una experiencia que quizás no tienen antes y conocen a nuevas amistades. Y claro, tenemos que hablar sobre seguridad. Es un problema. Hemos tenido varios invitados de la LAPD aquí. Tienen increíbles programas para esas personas de tercera edad, ya sea en caso de abuso de finanzas o físico. Ellos tratan con ese problema rápidamente porque se entiende lo vulnerable que las personas de tercera edad son. Eso tiene que ver acerca de solamente cambiar espacios, es tener actividades que significan algo. Tenemos una gran industria de entretenimiento aquí que bloquea y excluye a personas de edad que participen por su edad en Hollywood. Eso es increíble. Parte de eso es por el negocio de películas. Mira, Paul Newman. Si le hiciera una película, entonces fuéramos así, pero él está en carrera de carros y vive en Connecticut, sí, pero él visita aquí mucho. Sí, aquí está su fundación de Hole in the Wall. Es un gran ejemplo para un hombre tan exitoso. Yo sé que fue animado por la muerte de su hijo, pero sin embargo, Su trabajo caritativo es un gran ejemplo para todos nosotros, pero tenemos muchas personas, Eli Broad, el alcalde Reardon, han sido muy generosos. Las bibliotecas. El señor Eiler, sí. Él está en Paula, en la Painted Turtles, un programa para niños. Debemos de poder decir a las personas que estas son las mejores prácticas que conocemos, todas las cosas que podemos utilizar para presumir, y si participan, ¿no se crea un programa igual? ¿Funcionaría? Sí, claro, y no podemos resolverlo todo inmediatamente, pero lo que tenemos que hacer es, tiene que salir y participar, ver dónde están sus centros locales, involúcrese, participe, y involúcrese con nuestro sistema de bibliotecas, también es muy importante, es un gran programa para personas de tercera edad, que anima a las personas, a mí me gusta que las personas participen, se involucren con la ciudad y algo bueno va a ser. Tenemos que tener cuidado, señor, porque mucha gente maneja muy rápido. Es muy peligroso. Tengan cuidado en las intersecciones, pero no tenemos esas aceras con hielo y días horribles. Mojados. Esta es una linda ciudad con lindo clima. Hay lugares para todas las personas que visitar. Me encanta la idea de que la biblioteca están incluyendo más horas y también aulas móviles, porque si todos sabemos el problema de transporte somos nosotros. La biblioteca tiene un programa de reading donde las personas de tercera edad leen para los jovencitos, se los inspira de otras maneras, es muy muy positivo. Programas de baile también son muy positivos también, hace que las personas bailan no el samba, pero el Centro Nacional diferentes bailes. Pero ahorita estoy en un momento de personas, bueno, todos, sí, se nos olvidan las cosas. Bueno, claro, me encanta bailar, pero para mí, salsa. Eso es lo que como, ¿verdad? La verdad es de que las personas de tercera edad tienen mucho más que ofrecer que solamente su propio interés. Han mirado el cambio en nuestra ciudad. Sí, son maduros, ellos saben, no tienen que, ellos tienen su experiencia, es gratis y dan mucho a la ciudad. Debemos de dar a ellos y crear oportunidades para ellos y felicitarlos por lo que hacen y por quién son. Creo que el futuro va a tener que proveer para cuidado de salud accesible. No estoy hablando de estaciones grandes, estoy hablando acerca de en lugares donde uno puede llegar durante el día para que los problemas diarios se puedan tratar. Si tienen que ir a una sala de emergencia, que cuesta una fortuna, pero al mismo tiempo programas de bienestar, estar involucrado de caminar en su parque local, en su comunidad, un poco de ejercicio, estiramiento, todos tenemos que hacer más de esto. Yo como perrito viejo, todo el día me levanto, voy al parque Griffith, pero todos tenemos que hacer algo de ejercicio muy importante y participar en eso es buena para salud física, mental y eso que se nos permanezca alejados de los buenos doctores que trabajan muy duro para nosotros. Sin mucho tener el parque Griffith ahí cerca de su casa. También tenemos parques, un sistema de parque de recreación muy bonito. Una de las cosas que empezamos aquí en el programa con estos parques tan bonitos para los perros, lleva a su amigo perrito, lleva ahí, ellos hacen ejercicio, respirar aire fresco y con eso es muy bonito, es muy motivador ver a personas que queremos una calle como Main Street, que las personas caminan, participen, conocen otras personas y tienen una relación, porque es agua y relación lo que hace que toda la vida sea mejor. Sí, estoy pensando en ese pozo en la Alvera Street, donde se reúnen, donde está el agua. Yo estaba en subterráneo en Cornfields en tiempo de Mulholland y ¿qué tal utilizar nuestro río? Yo sé que hemos hecho mucha reclamación ahí y reciclaje y está llegando a ser un lugar muy atractivo al visitar. Ciertas mañanas, uno de mis entrenadores de la preparatoria, él anda en bicicleta con otra persona de edad en la ciclorruta al lado del río. Eso es algo muy positivo. Anda en bicicletas, trabaja con un grupo. Unas veces es muy divertido cuando lleva un amigo, cuando hay un amigo con usted. Es bueno tener un sistema de amigos y hay muchas personas que buscan hacerlo. Sí, es correcto, pero muchas personas francamente están viviendo mucho tiempo ahora que han perdido sus amigos y sus amistades ya han fallecido y quizás por razones de salud o no se sienten en estado físico, quizás no se sienten confiados en hacerlo y la renovación de amigos constante lo hace uno más joven. Sí, correcto. Sí, diera usted un ejército de personas de tercera edad, usted diera la orden al ejército, debemos estar en movimiento para ayudarle a usted a acercarse a las personas, a los padres de la ciudad. No, también a las mamás como Han y Perry. Sí, la familia Han ha hecho una contribución, ¿verdad? A nuestra ciudad. Sí, Kenny Han fue un hombre que escuché cuando era yo muy joven. Él era un hombre real. Todos debemos de participar y ser activistas. El gobierno es tan bueno como las personas que representan tienen que involucrarse, tienen que participar. Es una lucha porque el pastel es de X tamaño, pero no que tratar de probar una clase de pastel y mejorar la calidad de vida. Los ya saben cómo funciona el sistema. Son los que hablan más, son los que van a poder lograr cosas. Y si es así, podemos darle de comer a nuestros hijos. Pero ya no tenemos más tiempo para muchísimas gracias a nuestro invitado Tom LaBanche, al concejal del distrito número 4 de Los Ángeles y presidente del Comité de Arte, Park, Salud y Personas de Tercera Edad. Y ahora el momento para nuestro nuevo segmento, el programa Jingle Senior Stat Shots, donde miramos las estadísticas que tienen que ver con las personas de tercera edad. Hablamos brevemente acerca del incremento de la expectación de vida. Bueno, he aquí las cifras verdaderas. La última estadística disponible de los Centros para Control y Prevención de Salud son del 2003 y ellos demuestran que la expectancia de vida de un hombre blanco ha subido de 68 años de edad en los años 70 a 77.9 años en el 2003. Y un incremento de 9 años. Para los hombres afroamericanos, la expectancia de vida ha subido de 60 a 68.9 años. También ha incrementado 9 años a través de 33 años. Para mujeres blancas, el porcentaje ha aumentado menos que los hombres, pero la expectancia de vida, el promedio de esta en el 70 para las mujeres fue 75.5 años y en el 2003 a 80.4 años, un aumento de 5 años. Piense sobre eso. En 1970, mujeres afroamericanas esperaban que iban a vivir 68.3 años y en el 2003 la expectancia de vida subió a 35.9, un incremento de 7 años y medio. Entonces, en promedio, los hombres viven 9 años más que hace 33 años y las mujeres han agregado 6 años a su expectancia de vida. Ahora, eso es todo en el Senior Stat Shot del día de hoy. El Departamento de Personas de Los Ángeles puso este programa, contribuyó el canal 35 para que las personas de tercera edad que están viendo en Los Ángeles y las comunidades alrededor estén bien informados sobre los muchos asuntos que ellos enfrentan en las vidas diarias. Y también para dejarles saber ustedes los muchos servicios que el Departamento de Personas de Tercera Edad ofrece a las personas de tercera edad. Y nos gustaría escuchar sus comentarios sobre el programa, lo que les gusta, lo que se puede mejorar e ideas para programas en el futuro. Por favor, llámenos. El número está ahí en su pantalla, 213-252-4088. De nuevo, 213-252-4088. Llámenos con sus comentarios e ideas. Esperamos escuchar sus comentarios. Mi nombre es Paul Peterson, de parte del Departamento de Personas de Tercera Edad de la Ciudad de Los Ángeles, las personas aquí en City View, en la 35, y todos nuestros invitados en el Departamento de Jingle. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Hasta la siguiente vez.
From America's Most Wanted. The Los Angeles Police Memorial Foundation is presenting their 37th annual Celebrity Golf Tournament and Family Fun Day. This worthwhile event will be held at the Rancho Park Golf Course on Saturday, May 17th in West Los Angeles. Gates open at 8 a.m. For more information, contact the foundation at 323-276-5970 or the website at lapmf.org. Remember, you can make a difference.
Hi, this is Rabbi Mentz of Chabad of Bel Air, living in the great city of angels. You are watching LA City View 35, our channel, our city.
Thank you. Good morning. If people can take their seats, thank you for joining us. Today's Tuesday, April 22nd, 2008. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Yes, let the record reflect Commissioners Pacheco, Mack, Orden, Saltzman, and Scobin are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll start with Agenda Item 1, Commission Business. Commissioner Saltzman.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
A few things to report on. I attended with Commissioner Mack and Mr. Tiefank briefing by Chief Hillman regarding the extensive planning that's been done for May 1st, in particular the organizational structure and, of course, review of the training that both Commissioner Mack and I have experienced, maybe others have as well, and some of the command and control issues, and it certainly looks like things are in good shape. That was quite encouraging. I noticed that on today's agenda, one of the permits for the protest or the march is there, so that seems to be moving forward. In addition, Commissioner Mack and I also spent a couple hours, a little more actually, at what they called a tabletop session with a large group of command staff who will be active on May 1st, going through different scenarios, talking about coordination and communication issues, and I was particularly impressed with the planning that's gone into that and the clear communication coordination going on within the department, within units within the department, and, for example, outside the department with the fire department and other agencies. And even in that session, a number of issues were raised and resolved, and so that was quite encouraging. I joined Commissioner Orden on a conference call regarding the Safer Cities initiative and enforcement, and she may have some more to talk about that. I missed part of that call, but participated in that. I also had a couple meetings with Mr. Tiefank regarding the Explorer issue and the protocols in the FID investigations and involvement of robbery homicide that I've talked about, and we'll talk about a little bit more today. And also had some conversations with officers in FID and in the Inspector General regarding the use of force cases that we're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Saltzman, and thank you to both you and Commissioner Mack for your efforts relative to May Day. We very much appreciate you meeting with the department and the command staff on those particular issues. Commissioner Orden?
Yes, we did indeed have a extensive conference call, and I think a very useful conference call on an update on Safer Cities initiatives and some of the successes and some of the alleged problems, and we're going to continue that dialogue. Independently of that, also coordinated with several of the legal services providers and 6 or 7 of the largest law firms that are attempting to assist in the implementation and success of Project 50, which is, was originally started as a county project to move 50 of the most at-risk homeless people into supportive housing. They're almost halfway there, and there are issues in terms of coordination with the department on that as well. So we're looking into that as well. Had a lovely reception for our new Consul General of Mexico, and that was sponsored by our former Commissioner, Shelley Freeman, and saw many of our command officers there. And also side meetings on the complaint process and issues that have been raised by our audits, and we're continuing in that process as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Orden. Commissioner Scobin?
Thank you. 3 things to report on. I attended the annual dinner of Shamrim, which is a Jewish Peace Officers Association, where the honorees this year were Chief McDonnell and Rabbi Kolodny, who's one of our department chaplains. Two areas that I've spent a fair amount of time on during the past week. I just wanted to bring the commission up to date because they'll both be coming back to the commission for action. Are important quality of life issues, and they may not be sexy issues, but they impact a lot of people in the city. First has to do with our hotel ordinance. You might recall there was a motion from the Public Safety Committee asking whether it should be criminalized. And there was a reply given. They're looking at that right now, and they really would like us to approach it from a different, Councilman Huizar would like us to approach it from a different perspective. Rather than criminalize it, how do we best make it work for all parties? So I've met with hotel operators. I met with several members of Councilman Huizar's staff, and Commissioner Saltzman is working on this with me now. And what we're talking about is trying to find a way to have an education component, a compliance component, as well as an enforcement component, and try to have a situation where people who are working who just didn't know aren't getting charged with a misdemeanor, where they may not have knowledge of the technicalities of the ordinance, which basically relates to getting a lot of information when somebody registers. At the same time, we want to be sure that we're not doing anything that fosters prostitution, drug, and other activities that can happen at the hotels. So there's a lot of work to be done on this that impacts the public. The other one has to do with the bandit taxi cabs. And I've had quite a bit of dialogue and a meeting set up with the department where we work in conjunction with the Department of Transportation. You might recall I was a commissioner of transportation prior to the police commission. But there's some significant issues about enforcement, how we're working with DOT, what's happening. And it's really not a victimless crime in that on one hand you have what we call bandit taxis, which are unlicensed taxis, which in many cases take advantage of the public. They can get them and charge them excessive fares and not let them go. They can have unsafe equipment. They don't pay the city the proper licensing. On the other hand, if you look at a number of the violent crimes that resulted in death in the last few weeks involving taxis, they've been these bandit unlicensed taxis. So on one hand, you have got part of that community which can victimize the public. On the other hand, you have another part of that community that is more susceptible to being victims of violent crimes themselves. So it's a serious issue all around. So we'll be working on that and meetings set up with the department and DOT to try to look at that and come back to the full commission for some commission directive on that. So they're not sexy issues, but they're important quality of life issues, and in some cases do evolve into violent crimes.
Thank you, Commissioner Scobin. Commissioner Mack?
Yes, for certain. I hope the hotel issue is not a sexy one. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. I agree with Commissioner Saltzman. We under Deputy Chief Hillman's leadership, I think the planning is very, very impressive in preparation for the upcoming May Day. As he indicated, we had a private briefing, but then we attended a larger one, and really no stone is being left unturned, and we're very optimistic that things should go well, assuming that everyone learns all of the good training and the lessons that are being projected. Also had a meeting with Captain Eric Davis, who is relatively newly assigned as the commanding officer at Wilshire Division, kind of as a get acquainted session in terms of some of the issues and challenges that he and and his team over at Wilshire are facing. It was a very good, productive session. And participated in a meeting, Chief Bratton and Assistant Chief Passenger and Deputy Chief Sergio Diaz and Charlie Beck participated with a group of clergy persons, and this was a diversified group of clergy persons, some African American, some Latino, Jewish, to discuss this very serious and recent issue around the whole business of the uptick in violence on the one hand, but particularly the concern around the extent to which they're racially, some of the violence is racially motivated, particularly in terms of Latino versus African Americans. And of course, it's been very much in the news, and Chief Bratton was sharing his both his concern and his perspective, but also, frankly, was reaching out to this group seeking input as well, because it's a delicate balancing act here. On the one hand, as we know, the department certainly has certain protocols, and these investigations have to be objective, have to be based upon facts. But on the other hand, frankly, given the history of some of the tensions that have been and continue to be out there, and also the reality that in some instances people's perceptions or their realities in terms of whether or not some of this violence, in particular some of these homicides, are racially motivated. So trying to, not wanting to come across as being oblivious to that reality or to be insensitive, but I thought it was a good, healthy discussion, and hopefully as we move forward, this group of leaders will be helpful and supportive, but also, when I say supportive, I mean candid as well in terms of providing input that I think the chief and department and the commission will find helpful and useful.
Thank you, Commissioner Mack. I was able to meet with Council Officer Jose Huizar and talk to him about a number of policing issues relative to his area. I also was able to attend the welcoming ceremony for the new Consul General of Mexico. I will be meeting today with Chief Pasinger and folks in operations to get a sense of their work in the department. It's been a couple weeks ago Chief Pasinger invited me, and I've been preparing questions ever since. Also had the opportunity last week at the University of Southern California to be a judge in a mock trial, which was fun to see their highly talented students participate in trial. Agenda item 2, a report of the Chief of Police, Chief Pasinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Commission, reporting for Chief Bratton, who is away. I'm pleased to report that violent crime, Part 1 crime, property crime, all continue to trend in favor of the community. Year-to-date violent crime statistics still reflect a 4.2% decrease based upon the same time last year. Likewise, in property crimes, nearly an 8% decrease for a total property one crime total of 7.1% decrease. And as I often offer in this setting, it's not the numbers, it's the people. And what that reduction means is 2,775 fewer people this year compared to year-to-date last year that were victims of violent crimes. Very briefly, as it relates to the bureaus, Central Bureau has posted a 2.2% reduction in Part 1 crimes. South Bureau, a 7.1% reduction in Part 1 crimes. That's also related to a nearly 16% decrease in shots fired, and also a 10% decrease in shooting victims in that bureau year-to-date. Valid Bureau is reporting a 6.7% reduction in Part 1 crime, and they reported 27% reduction in shots fired. Likewise, a 26% reduction in shooting victims during that same period. West Bureau still trends extraordinarily positively with a nearly 13% reduction in Part 1 crimes, with a 32% decrease in shooting victims. Gang crime as well tends to go in the right direction. There's an 8% reduction in gang homicides for a total reduction of 13.4% reduction in overall gang crime year-to-date. I would also very quickly like to add that just last week we had one of the final sessions of our command mentoring initiative. We instituted that about a year or so ago. You would, as I have mentioned before to many of you in this group,
and also in the audience, since I began my term as the Director of Operations, of the 53 captains that are assigned to the Office of Operations, over half of them have been promoted during that time. And the Chief and I felt very strongly about making sure that as a result, as it relates to drop, that we do something to transfer the command DNA. And over that period of time, it's been a really, really nice series of sessions every month where some of our younger members, or more inexperienced members of the command team, some of them aren't so young, I suppose, have an opportunity to team with our more experienced command officers and talk about issues as it relates to budget, deployment, crime strategies and the like. And it's been a very, very healthy series of sessions where not only they have learned from their mentors, but also from each other. We have another group of them that we're going to involve in the next session of this Command Mentoring Initiative, and it's my great hope that they'll have the same experience as the first group. And that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief Pasinger. Agenda item 3, report of the Executive Director, Mr. Tiefank.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the Commission. A few items to report on. Last week and yesterday I met with representatives of the City Controller's Office and our staff, along with 2 official police garages that have been the subject of an audit that has been completed by the City Controller's Office. It was an exit interview audit for the purposes of those 2 OPGs, and we'll be meeting again with the Controller's Office as they look at the administration of the contracts of OPGs. That's a responsibility of Commission Investigation Division. Also, in that light, our staff are completing some projects that have been requested by the City Council and by the Commission related to official police garages, and we'll be meeting with Commissioner Scobin as a liaison to go over those reports. We anticipate bringing those to the Commission within the next couple of weeks. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tiefank. Report of the Inspector General, agenda item 4. Thank you, sir. I note the items on agenda item 5, information items. Agenda item 6, I understand we have one presentation. Mr. Tiefank?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the Commission, it's my pleasure to present the Police Commission March Employee of the Month, which is Police Officer 2 Richard Russell. Rick, would you come forward and be appropriately embarrassed as I say some nice things about you? You see Rick in here weekly assisting as a sergeant-at-arms. Also, his assignment as one of our enforcement officers to the Police Commission Investigation Division is to go out and enforce the various police permits, about 52 different types of police permits throughout the city of Los Angeles. Rick is one of the officers charged with that responsibility. He has taken on that role and really gotten into it. He's developed PowerPoint presentations, which he is taking to the various policing areas and bureaus throughout the city to educate police officers on the role and responsibility of the Police Commission and Commission Investigation Division in the enforcement of permits, and educating again officers so they know what to look for and then pass on information to Commission Investigation Division. He's a real team player, nice man. Everyone loves Rick. He's really got a great personality, a team player, does not hesitate to chip in and do his fair share of the work. He's been with the department a little over 12 years, with Commission Investigation Division about a year and a half, and he was nominated by his fellow employees, which again reflects how they hold him in high esteem and recognize the work that he does as a member of the Commission Investigation team. So with that, we'd like to congratulate Rick, and I have an appropriate certificate. If the commissioners would please step down and take a picture with Rick. Congratulations, Rick.
Agenda item 7 is our consent agenda items. Any commissioner want any of those items pulled? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval of 7A through I.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded relative to 7A through I. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None. Seeing that, it's unanimous. Agenda item 8, I suggest pulling 8B and 8E. Are there any other items that any commissioner wishes to pull? If not, I would entertain a motion as to A, C, and D.
Mr. President, item 8A is a presentation from the
sorry
department
about
on
that.
the status of construction projects.
I move approval of items 8, C, and D.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded as to 8, C, and D. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, it's unanimous. 8A is a presentation. It is on the status of construction of the Metropolitan Jail, the new Police Administration Building, and other projects. Good morning.
Good morning. Tom Brennan from Facilities Management, and I'll kind of give you a brief rundown on all the construction projects that are going on, sort of in the order that we expect to be moving into them. We've completed moving into the Metropolitan Bomb Squad facility. This weekend, we're going to be moving into the Operations Valley Bureau headquarters in the new Valley Traffic Division. So that will become operational. On the heels of that, we are basically at 90% completion on the rest of the facilities.
Is the new bomb squad facility, the move-in is completed, and so is that operational?
Yes.
It is? Okay, thank you.
We completed moving into that facility in March.
Okay.
So we're completely out of the old Weatherite building at Northeast, and we have padlocked it and turned off the power. Definitely not a building that we want to continue to be in. The remaining stations, Rampart is about 98% complete. We're doing some the contractor is doing very last-minute punch list items, and we are moving into post-construction. The remaining stations, the Harbor Replacement Station, the Hollenbeck Replacement Station, the new Olympic Station, and the new Topanga Station are all in the late 90% of their being complete as well. And the city, which facing its budget crisis, has restricted our funding through the rest of this fiscal year, has provided the funding that we're going to need to complete the furniture purchases and the equipment purchases for those stations. And we expect to be into all of those stations by the end of this year, opening the new Topanga Station and the new Olympic Station in January of next year. After that,
I do have some quick questions. So on the replacement stations like Hollenbeck, Rampart, so once those facilities are good to go, then the transition will happen relatively quickly?
Yes, sir.
As to the Olympic Station, when are we going to complete the construction of that facility?
The construction of the Olympic facility, basically Olympic and Topanga will both be complete as far as the contractor's construction in May. And at that point in time, we'll start the post-construction where the police department and general services moves in. We start putting in the technology components, the infrastructure that we need to have the station open.
But the station, for example, Olympic, won't be functional despite moving in May. It won't be up and running until January of 2009?
That's correct.
Why is
that has to do with the city's budget and the funding that's been put in place to staff those stations.
I see. And is the same true for Topanga?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And after that...
What's the target date for Rampart?
Rampart, we expect to be opening in July. At this point in time, everything is moving right on schedule for that to happen. So that'll be... we're very excited.
I'm driving by frequently, and
these facilities are going to start opening
really
very
coming
quickly.
along.
It's difficult. I work closely with Operations Valley Bureau on the Topanga station because you don't just turn on a switch. You need to start transitioning staff to do all the things you need to do to get the station ready. And then there may be some additional people at 1DP, but it's not just there's a goal you work towards, and you're moving people and doing things. So it's really important to have a date to work towards. Otherwise, there becomes a tremendous loss of effectiveness of the people involved. So hopefully the January date is one that is reliable. The department's been pretty clear that they feel that they can make the January date in terms of people and budget, but it's important for that not to move if at all possible because of the inefficiencies you create.
The Metropolitan Detention Center is about 75% complete. That building will be opening in February of 2009. The Emergency Operations Center will be complete in June of this year, but the technology component that's going to go into that is so intense. It's not only for the department operational center, but the city's emergency management department will have their emergency operations center there. The fire dispatch center will be there as well. So the technology backbone that's going into that is very complex, and that's going to take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to get that installed. So we won't be opening that building until 2009. The Police Administration Building, if you've driven around, it's going to be spectacular. The building is 65% complete. They're currently putting up the interior framing. Actually, now you can walk through and actually see what the building is going to start to look like and how it's going to function. The city controller did an audit on this project that was recently published. The controller came back with 32 recommendations for the city as a whole to look at how it can improve its construction projects. The Bureau of Engineering is addressing those. I've read the report. Basically, a lot of those issues have to do with a lot of the way the building came from, how it was located, how it was moved, how it was bid out. But I have to say that on both the Proposition Q projects, which is a $600 million program, and the Police Administration Building, which is another $400 million with that, and the parking structures that go along with it, I've never been part of a better team effort in the city to get these projects going. The Bureau of Engineering, specifically Public Works as a whole, and our team on the police department and general services have worked so well together that it's a joy to be part of this and see this actually come to life. And if anybody has any other questions about the projects, I'd be happy to answer them.
There are no other questions. Just thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sorry,
The audit, which of course did get quite a bit of publicity, and we've talked about this, I think, ever since I've been here, in terms of that initial bidding process. I recognize we're not really a part of that as a department, as a police department. But do you see anything going forward that will be able to reduce the additional costs at all from where we are now?
I think that we're evaluating every part of the project as it's going forward and looking at ways to be fiscally conservative. We are certainly looking at the manner in which we're going to be outfitting the building. We're looking at ways in which to, although we had asked for budget amounts that we thought we would need, we are looking for ways to come under those budget numbers for furniture, for equipment and items that will be going into the facility. So we are working very closely with the CAO's office, with engineering, at looking at all the infrastructure that's going in to make sure that what we're putting into the building is what we need. I'll give you an example. One of the changes in the structure, we are going to change the phone system. As opposed to a traditional phone system, we're going to have voice over internet protocol phones, which require a different type of backbone technology within the building. As part of that, we've reduced the copper use in the building from a very high level to a lower level that will support those analog functions like fax machines that we may still need. So every time we do something that we move forward, we're looking at what we can do to contain the costs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for your presentation. Agenda item 8B, it's a department report about some supplemental funding for relative to the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act program. Good morning.
Wanda Bell, Fiscal Operations Division.
And I thank you for joining us. I pulled this understanding that you may have some amendments. I didn't have questions unless the other commissioners do, but are there amendments to this particular report?
Yes, the state has reduced the county's funding by 10%, which in turn has reduced the city's funding. So the funding level has changed from $480,000 to $428,125. We will continue to fund the Explorer program with $90,000 and overtime and $338,125.
Okay. Are there any questions by my or comments by my fellow commissioners?
I just have a comment. I had also asked to have this item held. I will support it, but I wanted to take the opportunity to remind my colleagues on the Commission and in the Department that it's been 5 months since the Commission asked the Department a series of serious questions about whether the Explorer program is in compliance with the city's non-discrimination policies. It was at the last meeting of my predecessor, Commissioner Freeman. We've had routinely, week after week, gifts that come to the Explorer program. I've not held up any of those, and I don't plan to. This agenda item, I wanted to take this opportunity because it involves an expenditure of, it was $120,000, if I understand now, $90,000. And I don't question, I'm not sure anybody questions the value of the Explorer program to the at-risk youth. I think that the value of the program is, for those youth, is tremendous. But I am waiting for assurance and demonstration that the program is in full compliance with the city's non-discrimination ordinance, in particular with respect to sexual orientation and gender identity. And I understand it's in process. I understand there's work going on. But I just want to remind everybody, it's been 5 months, and at some point we do need to deal with that issue. And so, but with that, I will not stand in the way of this moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Saltzman, and I'll just add to that the Commission has asked the City Attorney's Office for some legal guidance here so that it can be factored into the evaluation along with other information that we've received from the Department, and likewise. So we are awaiting that opinion. I do appreciate you reminding us on this, and we should keep that at the forefront of our thinking as well.
I appreciate that, and I offer my encouragement to the City Attorney as well. We're waiting and look forward to hearing your views and having that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would certainly echo Commissioner Saltzman's sentiments. This is an issue that we need to address.
Thank you.
And with that, are there any questions on 8B at all? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the report and transmit it to the Mayor and Council.
As amended, I assume.
As amended.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded as to 8B. All those in favor? Aye. Is any opposition to it? Seeing none, it's unanimous. 8E, it's a department report that was continued for input from the Office of the Inspector General. So I thank the department for its efforts here, and also the Inspector General. If we might get a brief overview for the benefit of the public, and then we'll have a few specific questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Django Sibley, Assistant Inspector General. The OIG's audit section has reviewed the Department's warrant applications and supporting affidavits audit fiscal year 2007-08, pursuant to our responsibilities under the consent decree. In conducting that review, the IG's audit section identified a number of positive aspects of that audit. Specifically, it was noted that the samples were selected from a complete sample. The audit division did a good job evaluating warrant packages overall, and the IG's office did not identify any additional concerns that were not already identified by audit division's work. Additionally, the IG's audit section agreed with the majority of audit division's findings, found that the report was written in a logical and concise manner, and that it offered insightful recommendations. To the extent that there was any difference of opinion, the review found that in some instances relatively minor and inconsequential details were used to hold the department out of compliance on a number of objectives. The IG's review found that overall, taken as a whole, the department was in compliance, in fact, with some of those objectives, despite rather minor deviations from some specific details. of the department's requirements. And so as a result of that, the IG's office believed that the department was in fact in compliance with 3 additional objectives as opposed to the findings of Audit Division. And we have Beth Kennedy of our staff who can answer any more specific questions you may have.
So you're suggesting there was some nitpicking here?
This is great to have this kind of discussion about at the level of detail involved. I don't know if Audit Division has any comments, or the department.
Yes, I would like to respond.
Sure.
Especially regarding the low-risk findings. A couple of years ago, we had several meetings with the Federal Monitor. As you know, we have this particular audit tested 4 consent decree paragraphs. We had 15 different objectives that measured under those 4 consent decree paragraphs. The tests were conducted to address those paragraphs, but we tend to break them out because in the grand scheme, in the final analysis, we do not measure department compliance. The Federal Monitor, for purpose of the consent decree, measures department compliance. So what we've tried to do is we've expanded the testing and detailed the methodologies in the report so that anybody can come along and they can decide if they think that this particular methodology belongs under this particular objective. That's the first point I'd like to make. The second point I'd like to make is we did have some very serious discussions with the Federal Monitor a couple of years ago regarding these low-risk findings. At the time, the Monitor called them substantial findings versus administrative findings. We went round and round. They came out, they did a PowerPoint presentation to us, and our point was they didn't necessarily think that these would rise to the level of a reportable condition. The Monitor disagreed, and our audits will be, by the way, assessed by that Monitor, and if we don't follow what they say, they find our audits non-compliant, which could also make us part of an extension to any consent decree that we try to avoid.
For the public, why don't you cite some examples of where there's a difference of opinion between the Monitor and the department as to what's reportable and non-reportable?
The one that I can think of just offhand, in this report there are several, and I have the project manager here. She's a lot more familiar with the detail, but for instance, receipts for property taken into custody. For the first couple of years of the consent decree, we were required to have those in all of our arrest report packages. Even those receipts that were given to suspects for drugs the suspects said were not theirs. We thought that was kind of an unreasonable standard because when an officer is trying to give a receipt for property taken into custody that are drugs and the suspect says those aren't my drugs, it's kind of a waste of time. So the department policy, I think at the time stated you had to write not accepted or something like that. Well, we finally, after a couple of years, got the Monitor to buy off on that change. We will not hold the department out of compliance for that kind of an issue because they see the reasonableness of the approach. However, Audit Division is required, beyond those agreements with the Monitor, we have to report these low-risk findings. And honestly, what happened a couple of years ago is when the Monitor came out, they presented us with a PowerPoint presentation where they suggested that for administrative findings, we could weight the findings. So for lower risk items, we might give it a weight of 0.1 or 0.2. For more substantive findings, we could give it a weight of 0.9 or 0.8. Then we would have a threshold, and if it met the threshold, then that package would be considered out of compliance. The problem was we could never agree on the weights. That was the first issue, and we saw that there were going to be many more hurdles. So finally, the Monitor just said, no, you just have to keep reporting it until we say no. So in terms of the low-risk findings, we also, at your suggestion, we realized that we needed to provide some context. So as of a couple of years ago, we started reporting those issues as low risk in our audit reports so that you and the public and the Monitor and the Inspector General would get an understanding of what it is that we are talking about. And it's worked in that, for instance, in last year's complaint audit, the Monitor requires that we do package compliance auditing. So a package has to have so many tests, and if it doesn't meet all the standards for all of those tests, the package is out of compliance. So what we reported last year was out of, I think it was about 80 packages or 45 packages of complaint packages. There were 5 packages or 4 packages that didn't include all the required tapes of the investigations. We reported the compliance rate properly as about 91%. But in the report, we put in there also that there were actually a total, in all of those 45 investigations, there were a total of 240 tapes. Of the 240 tapes, there were 5 missing. So in the report, because we were required to report it that way, we had to say we were at 90%. The monitor turned around and used that information to give the department a compliance rate of over 95% because they realized 5 tapes out of 240 tapes missing means the department is in compliance with that particular objective. So my point is that what we're trying to do with these audits is we're trying to, on one hand, report to the way that the monitor will not find our audit non-compliant, but also report so that anybody reading the report, if they don't agree with us putting it under objective number 5 or under objective number 2, they can use that information. And by the way, these consent decree paragraphs overlap. So I think both of our positions are reasonable. I just want to ensure that Audit Division doesn't take it on the chin because we haven't gotten the monitor's acceptance of these changes.
Yes.
Hi, Beth Kennedy with the Inspector General's Office. The one thing I would like to address, and I appreciate Aaron Kinney's response, and I appreciate that Audit Division is now grouping their findings from low risk to more significant high risk, moderate to high risk concerns. The problem with that is that we see, for this audit, only this audit, usually we have been reviewing their audits time and time again. We haven't really noticed this issue, but for this audit, we found that it seemed that the low risk also included more insignificant and minor findings. The auditing standards do not require an auditor to report all deviations of a department policy. It's only the ones that have some type of consequence or significance. Inconsequential or minor findings are really not necessary to report. And I spoke with the Federal Monitor regarding this audit because they've already started their assessment. And I'm not going to go into what they're finding with this review. But I did ask them, I did mention to them the issue about if it did not specifically adhere to department policy, is Audit Division required to report that finding even if it's non-consequential and considered minor? And they said no. So I want to make sure that, in the future that hopefully if there is a misunderstanding, then maybe we can go forward and make sure that it's corrected between Audit Division and the monitor. But because these types of findings could impact the impression of others about the audit and maybe not take it as seriously, it's important to make sure that these are the findings that are reported as non-consent decree compliant or not compliant with department policy are actually somewhat significant and could have some impact that the department has to address. And that's basically our background on that. And then we also had raised some things with, adding a little bit more information for commanding officers to know how to correct their analysis to actually meet compliance with Audit Division related to their assessment of supervisors at search warrants, services of search warrants, and comment cards. So, there are some things that we raised, and we hope that Audit Division considers them in the future.
Are there any questions by the
there were, I thought, a number of very good points raised by the IG in this report. I won't go into all of them, and also I believe you put them in balance. But there's one that is a special concern to me. It's my belief that people in general, and more specifically police officers, are willing to be held accountable. And what they look for is a clear set of guidelines and fairness in the system. So I was concerned as to the comments about the post-incident review and the commanding officer's analysis, where there was an expression that the lack of compliance may not be because of negligence or carelessness on the part of the person performing the act, but rather a lack of clarity on what's being provided by the department, whether it be in information, rules, training, which makes it susceptible to different interpretations. I wonder if you could respond to that, and if there's a need to do, well, obviously there's a need to do something differently, the low percentages speak to that, but how to best address that situation.
It's my understanding with meeting with Audit Division and confirming with Civil Rights Integrity Division that they are working on providing some clarity to commanding officers in this regard, what's expected, hopefully providing some examples of good analysis that is expected when an auditor comes in, and the things to address. Possibly they might want to consider using some type of checklist to make sure that they addressed all of these issues. I mean, they're going through a lot of these search warrants. We've seen checklists actually help with a lot of different areas with complaint investigations, use of force investigations when they review them. Maybe that might be an area that they might want to explore, but we definitely felt that clarity was needed, and it's been quite a while, I think 3 years at least, that these issues keep on coming up, and that's why we highlighted it in the report.
Aaron, how do you feel about that issue?
Well, we didn't conduct any test work to make that determination. We saw it, and we saw that there was a low compliance rate, but we had a timeline. If we didn't have the deadline, we would have conducted test work. We would have conducted interviews to find out what it is about Special Order 28 that the commanding officers are not following, or maybe they're not aware of it, but we didn't conduct any additional test work.
Is that in the plans to do additional test work in that area?
For us, I think that the fact that the Inspector General brought it up and CRID's working on it, we've already had discussions. We had discussions with the monitor yesterday. In fact, the monitor yesterday was critical of us for being not as strict towards department policy, and the Inspector General is critical to us because they say we're too strict.
That's about
so
right.
we're trying to find the balance. We're trying to find the balance, and that issue, the monitor also asked us, but because of the timeline, if it were just a straight performance audit, we would have been able to do it.
Well, I would ask if it's all right with you, and it does need to be a special report, that the department come back to us and let us know what they are doing to remedy post-incident review and the commanding officer's analysis, since this has been a habitual problem. And it gets worse because we have so much movement within the, those ranks, too. That sometimes you train and then you have a new group, so it may be something, part of, it goes to one of the schools that we have. Would that be fair?
It sounds right to me. Maybe we can have Mr. Tiefenk coordinate with the chief and get back to us on that issue once the information's gathered and the approach is formalized.
And I just had one other question to the audit division. I think it's the last page, page 2, it comes in the full report as well, but it was summarized that we question the reliability of the reported compliance percentages for objectives 2, 3, 5, 5. I could not pull it out of the report so that I understood it. So if you could help me on in what way it was not reliable and how you anticipated it should be fixed.
Okay. In reviewing the department's audits, one of our primary objectives is reviewing the reported compliance percentages to see if we agree with them. If there's, some minor deviations in percentages, then that's fine. We don't really have a big issue with that. But when the deviation would cause the department to be in compliance or out of compliance, let's say audit division reported 95% for one objective, but we found it being 80%. We'll highlight that because we feel it went the other way. In this review, we found that for objectives 2D, in which it's other indicia, information is not authentic or correct, we found some minor findings being reported in that section, and typically that section is reserved for some of the more significant findings for the audit. That's one of the more significant consent decree mandates. So we felt actually that would go into supervisory oversight. So in essence, we felt that one is actually in compliance with the consent decree. 3A dealt with nighttime service issues. We found the 2 audits. We reviewed the 2 warrant packages that had some issues with night service and articulation. We went through them. We felt that it was adequate, and therefore, instead of being 89%, we felt it was over the 95% threshold, or actually 100%. So that's kind of what.
Did you have any that you felt were lower, should have been lower as well?
No, because
they were all in the higher.
Because we didn't identify any additional findings that we felt audit division should have reported. So in that respect, no, we didn't find them go the other way.
Okay.
May I respond also? And those 4 objectives, or actually, yes, objectives that they have, 2 of them are the low-risk issues that we were talking about earlier that we're compelled to report until the monitor tells us not to. One, as of yesterday, the federal monitor, when we had our exit meeting with them, they told us they'll be thinking about it, and they'll let us know. And then the final one, in their report, the Inspector General mentions that they received clarification from the department on January 10th regarding a specific recommendation for that particular objective. That's 2 weeks about after our report was issued. So if we can get by-off with the Federal Monitor, Audit Division is happy to report these that way.
Thank you. I couldn't tell if they were different than the other 2 that we've been talking about. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, my general impression here is that we've got very highly skilled folks looking at the same set of issues, coming to principled conclusions that are reasonable. The fact that we've got Audit Division, the department's command staff, the Inspector General, and the Monitor all talking is actually, frankly, terrific and great for the public safety, ultimately the city. So if we keep our eye on the ball, that these audits are designed to really improve the department, to get compliance with the consent decree, and to enhance public safety as they appear to be doing, then I think that to me is where we want to be. So I do appreciate your good work here. I really do. And with that, I would entertain a motion.
Move approval of 8E.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Thank you again. Agenda item 9, public comment. Madam Secretary, are there any comment cards?
Yes, Mr. President, we have 2. Lisa Torrent, Tourant, followed by Mr. Juarez.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Lisa Tourant, and I'm a resident of Los Angeles, California, and I have some serious issues. I want you to know that I've called the mayor's office on several occasions, and where there is darkness, there is potential crime. I catch 5 highways. I'm an MBA student at California State University, Los Angeles, and I catch the 10 to the 5 to the 110 to the 105, and there are 70 lights out, basically on transitional lanes, and it's very dangerous. And I notice that as I drive, I just don't see nice little graffiti. I see graffiti art. I am so tired of catching the 110, and every 3 days they're repainting. And I take a good look at this. I've been doing this for about a year now. And we have drive-bys on the freeways. And the public is always, the mayor and the police commissioner is always asking us to get involved. But you can't get involved if you can't see. Between the 105, the 10 to the 105, there's no fence there. And people can actually walk on the freeway and do their paint. And there's nothing. There's no lights. I pray every day that I'm on this freeway going to school that my car never stops between the 5 to the 10. There are no lights. Santa Fe, there's no lights down there. And I understand people shoot them out, but you know what? This is a big problem. This is regarding safety. So I feel that maybe you need to get bulletproof lights if people are going to shoot them out. But there's a lot of dark spots. And I don't know what kind of cars you drive and who has guns on them to feel that they can protect themselves, but I can't.
Thank you.
And it's very dangerous out there. Another issue that I have...
Ma'am, I'm sorry. We have a 2-minute time limit
Oh,
per
I didn't
speaker.
know that.
I'm sorry.
And you know, can I just make this one comment?
Very, very briefly.
Okay, well, I called to come down here to state my opinion, and the guy did not tell me a 2-minute warning. And also, there is a black and brown problem, and I do have issues at the anti-gang. There's what happened to Southwest, Southeast, and 77 divisions. I will be back. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Juarez?
Good morning, police commissioners.
Good morning.
Mr. Juarez is here one more time looking for justice because 29 years, 9 months waiting for justice is a long, long time. I'd like to know what kind of police commission is this? So I gotta say, police commission, no good. And they get good pay for nothing. You know that. Where is the chief? Maybe in vacation. Okay. So please, police commissioners, if you can do a better job, leave the place for somebody else better than you. Wake up, police commission, corruptors, mafiosos, no good, very good for nothing. Sign Mr. Juarez and tell the chief, I'm sorry what I say the chief. And the 9th of this month, some officer tried to arrest me and say, okay, arrest me, but you're going to take me to the court because I've been waiting for 29 years, 9 months, my chance to go to the court and tell the judge, yes, I've been waiting for justice 29 years. Now these corruptors, assassinos from Rampart number 2 try to put me in jail. Okay, I'm going to jail, but they got to take me to court. And have a nice morning. My public defender is Gloria Molina. My leader is Father Greg. And I want to stay in the projects till I get justice. All right?
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
No other comment cards, sir.
At this point, the Commission will recess to closed session for its matters there.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 10A through 10C in accordance with various government codes.
City of Los Angeles. When duty calls, the LAPD responds.
911 emergency. I need help. My daughter's missing. How old is your daughter? She's 4 years old. Her name's Janelle.
We have a critical missing. There is an Amber Alert, so let's look for any information you get. Pass that into the watch commander. Let's be careful out there.
To fight crime and to keep our streets safe.
I'm going nuts if this is my daughter.
Push agents at 75 211 begin marking the child market. Suspect west of 75 towards London. Property taking place. Code 3. 7855, roger.
our community.
Los Angeles Police Department this morning issued an Amber Alert. The suspect is driving a black Honda Civic.
Working as a team.
Hey, what's up?
I think I saw that car that you were looking for. It's yours? Yeah. Let's go.
They take pride in what they do. And when duty calls, the LAPD responds.
Positive on the vehicle.
Roger. Class X2, we have a positive on the Amber Alert vehicle.
It looks like they found the car.